Good evening, good evening, good evening. This is the Pseudo Killers on the Pseudo Killer channel. I'm so fired up. This is the culmination of a long, arduous process of breaking down this book and sharing it with you. As you know, we like to listen to the experts, research what they say, and present it. And I think we did a damn good job. Believe it or not, we started this 4 months ago, 5 months ago almost. It's been a while. And we're finally getting through it. Yeah. So now we at 7.5 Lessons of the Brain by Lisa Feldman Barrett. We are at the last chapter. We are not doing a recap. That's the beauty of YouTube. We were just talking about this earlier in the voice chat. The beauty of YouTube, right, is you make this information, and YouTube has this ingenious function where you can record the information and you can go back and research it yourself. I mean, I wouldn't believe it unless somebody told me. So we are in the final chapter, the final lap. There will be no victory lap. And then we're going to move on to bigger and better things and a different kind of speed. You know, this next book we're going to do is pretty exciting. So I want to introduce my cohorts, official pseudo killers. So I want to start with the lovely lady killer, PK official, Juju. You got anything you want to say to it?
Yeah, boy, live life till the wheels fall off that bitch. Minus the drugs and alcohol. Well, maybe a little wine, but
just a spice of life. A little spice of life.
Just a little.
And now we got the other official PK, Chill, Marcus Chilimwe, my personal Encyclopedia Britannica dictionary. What's going on, Chill?
What's going on, man? Excited to put a close to this chapter of the Pseudo Killers. We got some nice things planned, working on some things coming up, man. Just glad everyone joined us for the ride, and went on this journey with us. Hopefully they can implement a lot of these lessons that Lisa Barrett spoke about into their everyday lives and increase or at least benefit from it to where they can have a higher quality of life with that predicting brain. So, I'm glad I'm hoping everyone enjoyed it. And I look forward to the things to come,
Very nice, brother. Very clean. One of the things I like to say before we get into the chapter, and if you are following along in your book, we are in the 7th chapter. Our brains can create reality. One of the things that I'd like to discuss when we're done with this particular chapter, maybe take a couple of minutes and just not do a recap of the book, but just to get an idea from the people who've been here with us. Maybe we'll call a couple of people up. But the one thing I love when an expert presents their information is that you get where they're going with it. You know what I mean? You get where they're coming from. But when you get to that last chapter, that bow on the Christmas present, and they sum it all up, sometimes, and it's similar to this book, you really get exactly where they were trying to go. They were literally setting you all the way up. It's like a good album. You know what I mean? You listen to the whole album, those old albums, not these new ones with 2-minute songs. I'm talking about those old Stevie Wonder albums where it's a collection of songs, not necessarily just this hit for that or this hit for that. It's trying to tell you something. It's trying to speak to you. So that's what this book did for me. It's a book that helps me understand my children. It's a book that helped me understand how to relate with my wife, how to relate with my family, and helped me a lot in business. Believe it or not, over the holidays, reading the 6th chapter and the 5th and 6th chapter, again, helped me through something that I've been trying to do for about the past 3 years, and it helped me complete it. So I appreciate it, but we're going to get this started. Much respect to Unc. We're going to shout out to chat, Lamar Pope, Abju Ware, God Killer, Scarab Chronicles, Hits in the building. And we're going to get this started, man. We're going to rock. One of the things I always known as entertainer. What's up, Taj? One of the things I always known as an entertainer is you perform whether it's 1 or 1 million in the crowd. What's up, Gideon? What's up, Logic? Yeah, Stevie Wonder is a musical genius. So let's go ahead and get this started. This chapter was titled "Our Brains Can't Create Reality." So I'm gonna just say the first sentence, and then I'm gonna back off and let these official pseudo killers. It's an honor and a privilege. I don't ever want that to be mistaken. It's not a right that I get to get on these panels, that I get to do these shows. It's an honor and a privilege to have the opportunity to be the change that I want to see on YouTube. Content like this. What's up, Mac Rob? So the first sentence, it scared the life out of me, but it helped me get through the rest of this chapter, and she did an amazing job. The first sentence was, most of your life takes place in a made-up world. So now I'm gonna let either one of y'all jump in and start talking before we get into social reality, physical reality, and the 5 C's. So whoever wants to come off mute, knock yourself out.
So I guess I'll go ahead and take it. So that I think what normally happens, right? I think as they examine more and more functionality of the brain, as they continue to look at it, they realize that the machine, that network that is running, is so powerful, and it controls much more than what we believed it did. And so for majority of our lives, and there are points where it's slightly different to a degree, we live in a almost like a simulation, not that simulation theory, but also more so like a filtered world where your brain is filtering out so much information and you are completely unaware of it. And as you walk through your life, you don't actually become aware of it ever happening. So you believe that all you experience and see is the whole of it. I had a conversation with Logic. I did an example of one way the brain does that when the people are clapping their hands. Synchronism. Synchronism is one of the ways that the brain constructs your behavior. In the fact that what you see reaches your eyes much faster than what you hear, yet you consider it a single experience. And not just that, but if you were to do anything like sometimes they tell people to touch their nose, that sensation feels like a singular sensation. There's no distinction between the feeling of your finger and your feeling of your nose, even though the time frame between it takes a different amount of time. And so that's the beauty of the human experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
That such social reality can have such an effect, and we're going to get more into exactly what that is. Peace of God Killer.
Yeah.
Man, peace, man. How y'all brothers doing, man? How you doing, Sister Juju? That's
Doing a lot better now.
Office.
Yep. Doing a lot better now.
Why you doing a lot better down there, brother?
Hey, man, God Killer in the building. What you talking about?
No.
Listen,
Boy,
bro.
Listen,
I am not playing.
it.
My job in life will be for you to understand exactly what you represent. You mean a lot to all of us. And it's always a party when you come in the building, bro.
All right, as long as you don't start, oh, he almighty one, the bringer of 2 lands, the ruler of rulers. we don't rob and clown me, boy. Oh man.
Right. What up, the God Killer? I got too much background noise, so I'm on mute a lot.
Oh, all right. Okay. What's up, Juju? My favorite. Okay. All right, we're in the middle of that conversation, man. All right. I'm right here, yo.
Okay. And definitely just let us know when you want to come in. Right. When she starts talking about how our brains can create reality, I remember when I was a kid, bro. And I used to always have these thoughts, and I know I'm not the only person that had these thoughts, but when you first start spending money, you start really touching real money, and you're sitting around having conversations, if you're introspective at all, you've said to yourself before, holding some cash, saying, bro, this is just a piece of paper. It's people getting shot for this piece of paper. It's people taking other people's lives for this piece of paper. They killing themselves, going to school, burning the midnight oil, when in all actuality, it's just a piece of paper. And one of the things that I understood is that when you're talking about it being just a piece of paper, then I was like, well, if you were to take this piece of paper and just rip it, you ripped $1, but then you start asking, what's $1? Now you sound crazy to the people around you, but now that I understand that our brains can create reality, she says a very poignant sentence, and I'm gonna get into the money. We all live in a world of social reality that exists only inside our human brains. And I'm gonna say that one more time so people understand. We all live in a world of social reality that exists only inside our human brains. And then you got some people that'll take that and go there, but then you got the boundary between social reality and physical reality. So she makes an example of money, then I'm gonna give it to the panel. She says you can acquire books and other goods with something called quote unquote money, pieces of paper, metal, plastic. Sometimes money is invisible, flowing along cables between computer services and traveling through the air as electromagnetic waves over a Wi-Fi network. You can trade invisible money for invisible things, and the right to board an airplane early or the privilege of having another human serve you. What does that say to you, Juju? How does that change your perception or challenge your perception?
I mean, I don't know. I wanted to give the definition of social reality, but yeah, perception is reality. That's what it tells you. And everybody's perception may be a little different, or everybody's cultural perception may be different, right? Because back in the day, some money could be gold and other money could be a cowrie shell, so to speak. So, um, did I answer that right? Was that on point? Because I probably missed part of your question, but
No. It's just your opinion, just what you thought. Go ahead and define
yeah,
social
I missed
reality.
your
Go
question.
ahead.
But what I wanted to add though, when you gave the example about money and people killing money, is because it's exactly what she explained, right? When we get into abstraction, because she basically baby, baby stepped us all the way to the culmination of what it really was. And she defined it as, our brains have the ability to understand and function of something rather than just its physical form. So a rock is a physical form, right? But once in a particular social reality, or I'll say a cowrie shell, is a physical form, but in a particular social reality, um, and leading off with the last show when we talked about how different cultures create different minds, and with those different minds, you create a particular type of social reality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that cowrie shell now becomes money, becomes something that you can trade somebody else for necessary goods, right? So it's no longer just something about its physical form. It now had meaning and function to it. And I thought that was, yeah, so when we say it makes a lot of sense, yes, it makes a lot of critical and logical sense, because now you understand when we say how your brain creates reality, because these are things,
Mm.
everything, things that we utilize, everything that we've given them agency outside of their physical form. And I like, because she uses that physical form. You know what I'm saying? That's very specific. I'll stop there, but when I get a chance, I want to read social reality, or the definition to the audience, just in case if they're not quite understanding. But go ahead. I
For
have a
sure.
definition: social construct, um, abstraction, and social reality. I think
Yeah.
those are very important for this conversation.
No problem at all. And I think it's perfect. I mean, that leads right into it. And like I said, God Killer Marcus, y'all jump in, just let me know. But like one of the things that, comes up in our everyday conversation is things like social construct, social reality, these things that we take serious, these things that, because of our social standing, you know, she was talking about how, one of the things that used to trip me out, just got on board with Apple Pay about 2 years ago. It tripped me out. I used to sit in the car and I used to, be about to go into a store or something and be like, oh man, I left my wallet in the car. When my phone is now my wallet, technically.
Exactly.
You
Same
know what I
here, right?
mean?
And you
Right.
ain't
So
got to worry
now,
about
yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly. So
You can
now,
lose your credit card,
yeah,
still
it
have
doesn't
access.
it doesn't matter, right? So then now I could just take my phone, which is the thing that I talk on, it's the thing that I communicate with, and I could literally just tap it and that's my entire net worth right there. I could just use it and just say, hey, for goods. And then that person in front of me, imagine trying to 10 years ago say, I left my wallet in the car, but I got my bank account on my phone. I'm gonna just tap this box right here and just say, all right, now I'm gonna leave with these goods. We take these things for granted. We take these things for granted quite a bit, but unless Marcus or God Killer want to get in and comment, go ahead and go right into social reality, if you like to.
Any comments, Marcus or God Killer?
I'm good. I'm gonna wait till you read them definitions, then I'm gonna get into some unique details.
Okay, go ahead.
Which one should I read first? Because I don't want to read them all together. Social
Social.
construct or social reality?
Do social reality first.
Okay, gotcha.
I was hoping for the social
I
construct.
know you was.
Okay,
Mm.
and you know what? And guess what? That's why I said social reality, because I know once we get
Mhm.
on social construct, God Killer got
No,
Going
bars
black,
for that one. Because I know
going
he
black
faces,
to
bro.
Egypt.
He get
I
up.
said
He
no.
Going
I knew
black
it,
to
bro. I knew
Egypt.
it.
I
That's
don't
why I
think
said
so.
social reality, because I know
Damn.
social construct. I'm gonna mute my mic and I'm gonna
Going
just
black
listen
to
to the
Egypt.
history.
So
I don't think so.
No,
this
why
is
would you do social reality, physical reality, and
Damn
God Killer
well.
do social construct? See,
so
that's
Scanwell Records, ladies and gentlemen.
see, I
Scanwell
knew it.
Records.
I
I'm gonna do
knew it.
them both,
Scanwell
but
Records.
for now, social reality, and this is compliments of Chat GPT. So, be mad at your mama. Um, Social reality refers to the collective understanding. Collective is a key word. Beliefs, perceptions, and interpretations shared by members of a society or social group, which shape their interactions, behaviors, and institutions. It encompasses the subjective aspect of human experience that are constructed through social interactions, cultural norms, language, and shared meanings. Social reality can include concepts such as social norms, roles, identities, institutions, and power dynamics, all of which influence how individuals perceive and negate the world around them. Now, I want to expound on this a little bit because I have two examples that I've just recently experienced. One today on Instagram, and I was like, wow, because this is very fitting to the conversation. Disturbing. I made a post about it, and it had to do with religion. And in Pakistan, Muslims, they actually had a woman and her husband. The woman was under the table in a real pretty dress outfit. She looked very uh civil. Nobody take offense to that, but she didn't look like any of the poor, the middle class that I've been seeing. Well, now you can't really tell because I can't even use that as an example, but she didn't look like any of that. Even in the midst of what's supposed to be going on in Palestine, she looked very, reformed, high class, whatever. But she was under a table and they were in a restaurant and there was a mob of 300 people outside saying that they were going to behead her um and different things like that. You know why? Cuz she had on a dress with Muslim writing. It had halawa or something like that on, which means beautiful. But they said her dress was blasphemy, and blasphemy in Muslim countries is punishable by death. So that is a very disturbing example of social reality. Remember, we talked about how your mind's, culture creates different minds, and within that creates a particular social realities. And that is a very particular social reality right there. Um, I had another example too, but I'll let someone else go and maybe it'll come back to me. But I was like, wow.
So there's been some discussion about whether we should call ourselves Black or African American
Mhm.
or Afro American,
Jump right out the window,
and
Marcus.
some of them arguments have been based on certain assumptions
Hmm.
that just isn't true. Um, Such as, well, Black is a social construct, or Black isn't really. Listen, I'm going to tell you the truth. Both of them belong in social reality.
Hmm.
Before 1776, there was no America. A war
Hmm.
took place, and all of a sudden, you got America as a United States. Um, here's a better one. There were no French people. They were called Gaul at first.
Right.
And then when they got pushed, the Franks, the Gauls, and the Visigoths and the Goths got pushed together, they created something that we now call French. But no one ever questions that. So what I'm saying purely is that we live our lives based in social reality. Um, we put our hands over our hearts when a certain song plays. We have reverence for certain things that in reality, we just collectively agree that this is important, that this is sacred, that this has something to it. But in reality, all of it is really just a social reality, and it shapes the way we think. I want to show you an example of how serious social reality is. I'm going to go to her other book. So we did 7.5 lessons.
You go into emotions?
No, I'm going to the rainbow. Now, if you've been in the Discord, y'all remember this day and a half conversation about whether the colors we see
Oh,
on
the
the
colors
rainbow.
of the rainbow. Oh my god.
And so
Oh
this,
boy.
yeah,
Pick me out now.
this brought in the concept of what social reality is in the Discord. This is when we started
Mm-mm-mm.
really examining what that really means. And so I got it from,
Mhm.
well, I got it from someone else, but Lisa Barrett explains it so much better. So I'm going to show you what she actually uses. Yes, that one. To do it. Okay. I think we might actually like that. So if you can share my screen, please, Juju. Okay, so in her book, in her book about how emotions are made, she brings up this beautiful point right here. And if you look on the left, you'll see what people in America would view to be a rainbow. And each color is clearly decided, and the demarcation line between each rainbow color is clear for us based on being in America. But if you was to go to Russia, or if you was to go to China or India, those colors won't match up, which means that the shift between what's blue and red is kind of blurry. That demarcation line doesn't exist. Social reality puts the line there. When if you look at the picture on the right, you will see what the actual color spectrum would look like, or the best representation we have it, where it's really blurry and the colors bleed into each other, because the reality is, based on objective truth, is that it's a continuous spectrum. There really isn't any demarcation lines. We determine the demarcation lines based on social reality. We collectively agree, and at times that collective agreement isn't always universal. This also plays into why it's dangerous to use anachronisms,
Right.
right? Because what you're doing is you're taking today's social reality and
Mm.
applying it to other people who didn't have that same social dynamic.
Go in, Marcus. Go
So
in.
when we talking about, and we're going to listen, one of the places I'm trying to go next is history. So when we get to this point, it is very important that you don't take what you this reality we have now that shaped this specific mind at this specific time for this specific person. and try to look at it from an objective view, say this is just human beings being human. I'm just gonna stop right there.
Damn.
That was
Bam,
that
bam, bam,
was
bam,
that
bam,
was yeah, that was
bam.
powerful. That was powerful, Marcus. So
What?
we have
Killed
reached the
it.
point of the show. You killed it,
Oh.
bro. We have reached the point of the show where we talked about social reality. Before we get into physical reality, I want to hear social construct from God Killer. Now, here's why. Here's why, though. There's a reason why.
Right.
Because God Killer studies anthropology, he studies evolution. Juju, I want to make a comment once we get past social construct about the word collective, how you used it so perfectly. But God Killer, please come in because social construct falls right within the realms of social reality and give us your take on social construct.
Hold on.
Well,
So, okay, social. That means it has something to do with the people, the environment, all right, and it's socially constructed. So now you got to deal with a mindset. What mindset will construct ideas and concepts that will either help the people get money, keep the people perpetually poor, or enslave human beings? Societies do this, and they do it well. Human beings do things like this at high levels, and people fall in line with that. Okay, and so social constructs are important to a community. It can either harm them or help them. And so the conversation we've been having has been around a social construct that help place Africans and indigenous people in slavery. And I'm gonna talk about the Africans because I love African people. I love the African Americans, and I love the ancestors that we came from. There's no doubt about this. And I love them so much that I'm willing to take the risks in the subject matter that I know ignorant niggas ain't gonna understand. And I say ignorant because you're ignorant, like my father used to say. He said you ignorant if you stand up running your mouth about something that you can't verify and prove. You're ignorant if you make statements out your mouth and you know you're misreading something on purpose. Boy, that's ignorant, right? So we're dealing with ignorant people who do not understand social constructs, and they want to continue on promoting ideas that was at the cusp of our enslavement. Like, for instance, the socially constructed they black by American standards in the 19 goddamn 30s. That was actually a socially constructed one drop rule. Societies put together a one drop rule based off the social construct of black. So that means your grandfather, if you had a grandfather that was black and you was black, no matter if your parents was whatever the hell they was, you're black. The sociologist talked about that. Mr. Haynes, I believe. Dr. Haynes, he talked about how in Nuremberg, in Germany, how they had the Nuremberg laws that they got from America, and it was based off of the one drop rule. Meaning, if your great grandfather, your grandfather was Jewish, then you was Jewish, and that means you could be marked for murder. You know, like putting them damn ovens. And I'm saying it's wild. So in America, I'm gonna let you know who supported the social construct, right? The one drop rule, the paper bag rule, and all this nonsense. The Ku Klux Klan definitely was in on it. The United States government continued the foolery. And once you was targeted as being a black person, that social quote unquote construct. Black ain't got no continent. Black ain't got no damn place to live. It's a damn color. And human beings will attribute it ideas and concepts to color. But in the 1930s, 1920s, Jim Crow, once you was marked black, now what? Your income has plummeted, right? Because you can't be in certain places. You can't get certain jobs. You can't go to certain libraries. You can't be in certain restaurants. The ability to feed your family has been hampered now. No matter what you look like, if they said you was black, you was black. And so for me, people that claim to be freedom fighters, fighting for the freedom of our mind, people that claim to be top-notch African scholars, meta-nature readers, They can't understand the goddamn social construct. So when I make this statement that I'm black and I'm proud, I'm taking the social construct and I'm tweaking it. And I'm tweaking it because I was made to be filthy, dirty, and ugly based off the color of my skin. But I got enough sense to know, don't place that shit on indigenous people, man. If you're going to tell the people the truth, tell them the truth. Chronology is important because you can actually chronologize when certain social constructs came into being. Now, human beings are great at articulating, seeing color. They're great at putting things in different categories and different divisions. Oh, we're going to put it like the Crips. Y'all all red, okay? We all blue. Crips and the Bloods. Blue, red, that's your color. Language, right? Ancient times. Clothes you wore. The language you spoke. Things of that nature. Humans are great at that. The Romans did it. You was a barbarian if you didn't speak their language and did this and walked and did that. Ancient societies, Africans, same thing. But for the most part, nobody was actually saying that the color of your skin, that social construct had not been fully furnished yet. It was colonialism that put that forth. So I'm trying to figure out if you're really fighting for the freedom of our minds, right? Because ain't nobody got no chains on their damn arms. They got the chains in our brains, right? And that's why this show is spectacular for that, because we loosen up the damn chains. So I'm trying to figure out, if you're a freedom fighter to free our minds, then why aren't you freeing your own mind when you continually say at 2500 BCE that African indigenous people was more worried about the damn color of their skin than about the crops they was growing that actually tied them to the land and made them Africans? I'm gonna end like that because that should get me mad as hell.
One of
that definition now.
one of the reasons why I love for God Killer to talk about social constructs is because social constructs, it crosses, it's a universal language. It crosses so many different parameters. It crosses so many different ideas. I mean, when I was looking up social constructs, you know, one of the experiments in regards to social constructs, or social reality, there's an experiment where 4 people are sitting in a room, and every time a bell goes off, the 4 people stand up. So now there's 10 chairs. So when the 5th person comes in and he sits down, the other 4 people, every time it's a bell, they stand up. Now, nobody told this 5th person to sit up or stand, sit up, stand up or sit down based on the bell, right? So when they do it, he just starts automatically sitting up and standing up and sitting down. I don't know why that's so hard for me. Standing up and sitting down, right? So then the 6th person comes in there, 7th person, 8th person, 9th person, 10th person. They all just start standing up and sitting down. Now there's one person that doesn't do it. They pull them out of the room. The other people see that. So now you got 9 people. 4 of them know what's going on. The other 5 are just following what the other people are doing. And then they pull out the first 4. And now the people that were told to stand up and told to sit down every time the bell rang are gone. And the only people that are standing up and sitting down now in this experiment are the people that were just following the first 4. Now, I hope you can understand what I just said. But if that doesn't show you, Marcus makes a dentist office example. But if that doesn't give you an idea of how social constructs work or how social reality works, you just turned a bell sound into having to stand up and sit down. I'm gonna say that 50 times when I get off this show. But there's some jokes, right? There's some jokes. I was reading some jokes about social constructs, right? And societal norms. It says, I'm not a vegetarian because I love animals. I'm a vegetarian because I hate plants. Or have you ever noticed that anybody driving slower than you is an idiot, but anybody going faster than you is a maniac? It's like different societal norms that we just do every single day. I'm writing a book on reverse psychology. Do not read it. Just common, right? Just weird little, these are dad
Those
jokes.
are funny dry jokes. I love them.
I asked God for a bike, but I
So,
know God doesn't work that way. So I stole a bike and asked for forgiveness.
oh,
You know, just little, just like it's like when you start saying things like, and like you said, collective, Juju,
that's the
the
slap.
collective, these things, and it's funny how all these conversations intersect with each other. These are evolutionary conversations too, because this happens
Correct.
as a collective on a on a group of people. You don't need to necessarily have it when it's just one or two people. But
Right.
if you're trying to get an entire nation in order, social constructs is so important. So unless anybody else wants to say anything, I got some more jokes. I could do this all night. Before you criticize someone, walk a mile in their shoes. That way, when you do criticize them, you're a mile away and you have their shoes. So
That's
this, so you have, you know, when you got this kind of stuff going on, you realize, right? And you start looking around, pull out $1 out of your pocket. The only reason it's $1 is because somebody told you so.
right.
The
Gave
only reason that the $10 is $10 is because someone told you so. That's just what it is. The only reason it's not the same paper that's on the notebook is because somebody told you that the paper in the notebook has no value and the dollar has a dollar value. So societal norms and social constructs, we deal with them every day. For the pseudos that want to talk about simulation theory, we are not talking about that. It's just social reality. We're going to get
right.
into physical reality, right? We're going to get, you know, one of the last little pun politically, because that's my thing, political science. You know, I always say, people ask me about Israel and Palestine, right? That's the topic that everybody's talking about now. One of the reasons they ask, well, why have they been fighting so long? Well, that's because a rock to them is the rock on the mount.
Right.
When you put value into a rock and you put religion on it and you put societal norms on it and social constructs on it, you could fight over anything forever.
Right.
And that's essentially what's happened. And they've applied value that tears at their moral fibers and their beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So now, instead of fighting over this imaginary line, you know, they're fighting for a line that was created, you know, in between Israel and Palestine. Somebody constructed that. But people will fight on it, they'll die on it, you know, they'll go forever. So, Juju, if you don't mind, oh, go ahead, God
Hold
killer,
on,
if you
hold on,
want to say
Brass.
something.
Hold on, Brass. Hold on. I want to. There's a book called. What's that book called? It's irreversible. No, responsive. No, it's a book. We put it in our Discord for this specific show, and in the book, he
About
actually
the
brings
gorilla.
up. Nah. We gonna get to the gorilla. That's a beautiful part. It's the other book. It's
It's in our section. Let me see if I can
yeah,
go
there it
find
is.
it.
Predictably irrational. I think it's chapter 2 in that book. Remind me to put the PDF in there for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
In that book, he talks about humans aren't born with innate value. We learn value based on the culture we're in. And so certain cultures will value certain things differently. And I was examining some early European settlements in Carolinas, and they discussed one of those things, which is the shells that they use for, they kind of use it as trade money. And the Europeans thought that the shells had different values based on the color, but it wasn't different values. Once they actually started talking to them, it was different purposes. So the purple shell was more for answering with the spirits, and the green color shell was more for agriculture. And so the value wasn't necessarily in the color in and of itself, it was for the function of it. And that was their culture. And when they came across another culture, it became confusing because they didn't understand that cultural context. Always cultural context play a role in, because if you don't know the cultural context, you can't really make assumptions about what a person does and why they do it. I just wanted to put that caveat in there.
Yeah, I want to add that.
And then God killer after you.
So about Palestine and Israel, if anybody's following along, she uses them as an example for many things in the entirety of the source material, which I thought was extremely interesting. At first, I was like, wow, because she wrote this book a little while ago. It wasn't like yesterday or last year, right? And considering what's going on, which you know you would think it's been kind of peaceful in the last couple years, so who would have thought? So it all kind of matches up. But reading, towards the end, and particularly chapter 7, it all made perfect sense. It all made perfect sense. Even the example I was saying about, the Muslims in Pakistan and the woman, like it really, that's what hit home for me. And especially last week, and I'll keep repeating it because I think that's important to understand how cultures create different minds, and then how through that social realities, social constructs, um, are created, and how important that is. So then that goes to the note about, the what I want to say, the humbleness or the courtesy one should have also when visiting different countries or cultures, at least researching what their cultural values are, maybe how you should dress, things that you might not want to say or speak on. Like in some countries, you cannot speak freely about politics or religion, or that's jail, like and serious consequences. So yeah, I just I loved everything about the source material, and I love the fact that we ever covered it. Never thinking that it will be as interesting, as fruitful, as helpful, as useful, as educational, and as entertaining as it has been. I would just say that.
Go ahead, God Killer.
So, like at the end of the day, the actual the fight ain't actually against people. It's against these socially constructed ideas that has been damaging the human beings. And
Mm.
I realized it early on, and I don't think people actually realize that they focusing on people when it's the social construct that's damaging. It's the way you raise, the how you do things, the way we think. And even when you claim yourself to be a freedom fighter, you still stuck in that mold of that social construct. And it's crazy, man. And so for me, I recognized early in the game that, I'm not even fighting against the people. Yeah, and nothing you can do. The people that enslaved us, right? The people that held these truths to be self-evident, right? They're dead. But what they did was they left a legacy of social constructs that was damaging. That same social construct that put, millions of Jews in the oven, and that same social construct that put millions of Africans on slave ships. It's a wild idea. Them constructs can be very, very powerful and harmful to human behavior.
Yeah, to go back to that Israel and Palestine point, she writes, and there's a reason I didn't just use Israel and Palestine just off the top of my head. The world of social reality is also deadly serious. So wait, I'm gonna go back a little further. She says social reality can alter dramatically in moments if people simply change their minds. In 1776, for example, like Marcus said, a collection of 13 British colonies vanished and was replaced by the United States of America. The world of social reality is also deadly serious. In the Middle East, people disagree and even kill each other over whether a parcel of land is Israel or Palestine. Even if we don't explicitly discuss the fact of social reality, our actions is what makes it real. And I think that that's so important. These are lines that are drawn. These names, social construct, it's not real, but we make it real through social reality. So, and I think, and I think we're going to get into physical reality now, but the boundary between social reality and physical reality is porous, and we can use scientific experiments to reveal this. So, if you want to get into physical reality, Marcus or Juju, why don't y'all, y'all can go ahead and and go into that, or I can go into the next piece of conversation that we're going to have.
Juju, you got a definition for physical reality?
I do. Give me 1 second to pull it up because
Okay.
I don't remember all this stuff. So keep talking just a little bit more.
Let's go ahead and shout out some people in the chat. Shout out to Smoking Conversations with Sakina Ra. You have an amazing show. I appreciate it. Miss Lisa, I want to send a shout out to all the mods in the chat. I appreciate all of you and the work that y'all do. Ronald Perkins, welcome to the Discord. Sheffrin L, aka Loki. So what about the social constructs that are beneficial to humans? Okay, that's a good statement. That's a good statement. Gemini the Goddess, I appreciate you. Let's see who else you got in here. Mac Rob, Herbert Goss, Spin Barrel. Okay, okay. Um, I think what we're talking about, just so we know, let me see what Gemini just said. You can manifest both good and bad within the constructs. I agree. I agree. I agree. We'll get to Ronald's question in a little bit, but I want to kind of move through. We've been in here 46 minutes and we're barely through half the chapter. Let's get to physical reality, then we'll get to the 5 C's, and then we'll do a little bit more in regards to crowd participation, because I think those 5 C's will answer some of the questions that people are asking. And by all means, you can Google 7.5 Lessons of the Brain, Lisa Feldman Barrett.
No, it's in the description. You even got to Google. Just
okay, you don't even have
the
to.
link from
Okay,
the description box.
okay, perfect, perfect.
Make
You
it
can go right
easy
to the
for you.
description box and look at it yourself. She sums it up very well. And I want to also explain something to y'all too. There's a very important word in discourse that I think gets lost a lot of times. It's called context. So when we're having these conversations, understand that this is the 7th chapter of a book we've been talking about for 4 or 5 months. So if some of the things aren't connecting with you by us just saying it, understand that we've already gone over a lot of these source material, and we expect you to, keep up. Some of this work is work you have to do on your own. You don't come to YouTube just to get the information from us and then go do the rest of your life, because then that's just how it'll work. You got to do some of this work on your own. There's some emotional intelligence and actual intelligence that is your responsibility. But are you ready for us, Juju?
Yeah.
Let's get it. Physical reality.
In neuroscience, physical reality refers to the objective, tangible aspects of the world that can be observed, measured, and studied through scientific methods. This includes the physical properties of the brain, such as its structure, neural networks, biochemical processes, and electrical activity. Physical reality also encompasses the external environment, including sensory inputs from the surrounding world that the brain processes to construct perceptions and generate behaviors. Understanding physical reality in neuroscience involves investigating the biological basis of cognition, behavior, and consciousness, aiming to uncover the underlying mechanisms that govern brain function and behavior. I did put in neuroscience, and I think it got a little confused, but it gave you the gist of the definition without being subjective to just neuroscience.
Yeah, I think that's lovely. Before you came in here, one of the things that we were talking about when we were talking about that boundary, how it's porous, me and Juju were having high level spirits conversations in here and going back and forth about which wines we like. And there are actually studies that show that wine tastes better when people believe that it's expensive. Coffee labeled eco-friendly tastes better to people than identical unlabeled coffee. So that goes into those brain predictions and steeped in social reality. You know what I mean? They change the way that you perceive what you eat and drink. And then I also want to say, in regards to an evolutionary conversation, is that social reality is unique to humans. So I know some of you guys were trying to figure out exactly how there are some that are beneficial. And now you're going to get the 5 C's of how this goes. You know what I mean? It says scientists don't know for sure how our brains develop this capacity, but we suspect it has something to do with a suite of abilities that they call the 5 C's. Now we'll let everybody do it. I want to do the copying one, Uh, copying is the one I wanted to do. So I'm gonna name the 5 C's and then we'll cover them. Shout out to KL. Wine tastes better when your taste buds don't work. Okay, I like it. The 5 C's: creativity, communication, copying, cooperation, and compression. Does anybody, whoever, Juju or Marcus, do y'all want to get into creative? I know it seems like I'm moving kind of fast, but I want to move through because I want to get to some of the experiments before we close out the chapter.
I mean, we'll go real quick. I mean, so we already gave kind of an example of being creative or creativity, and if anybody want to expound on that, we can. But again, that is somewhat when we spoke on money, right? When we talked about, a rock can be considered money. How we as human beings can take something and look beyond its physical form and give it some type of agency or meaning or function. That would be an example of creativity, in this sense, talking about social reality and social constructs and whatnot.
Right, and that goes back into the brain. Our creativity permits us to make art and music, but it also allows us to draw a line in the dirt and call it the border of a country. We impose new functions on that same land. So not only did we draw a line and say, this is, I'm gonna go ahead and spark the chat. This is Israel and this is Palestine. But that line that was separated is a social reality. And then on top of that, to take it up to the east, what we're going through right now with the migrant situation. And then on that land and that line that we created, we impose functions on that area of land, like citizenship and immigration. And she sums the creativity up by literally saying our borders are made up. They're made up borders, basically because we have a creative mind. Marcus, do you want to get into communication? Is that one
now,
you want to touch on?
I want to touch on this porousness.
Well, I'll talk about Oh, you want to touch on porousness now?
Okay, go ahead. And then Juju, go right into communication, if you don't mind after that.
So I think what happens is, again, this is so impactful that we may not recognize just how serious this social physical blend is, right? There's studies out right now that talk about how if you're on a diet and you're stressed, your body doesn't process the food the same way. Can you imagine that? Having a stressful day can change how your body processes food. What happens? You could get laid off at your job. Car could break down. This is an evolutionary thing as well. But I want to clarify some things. Humans have all 5 C's, and they have it to a high ability.
Right.
That doesn't necessarily mean that we're the only animals that have it. That's 2 separate things. But in totality, we have all 5 C's, and we have it in abundance. Like, we use it in such strange ways. Sapolsky says it this way. He says, humans use similar things that animals do, but we use it in such a unique and different way. And it is that expansion that gives us the ability to say, this is what a human capability can be or may be. But our lives are constructed in such a way that if you are feeling pain and a loved one touches your arm or holds your hand, you may feel less pain. These are things that I don't think we understand how deeply that impacts our everyday lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
We talk about Colin Kaepernick, right? You had a visceral saying he's disrespecting the American flag or the American anthem. That's a social construct. We determined that song to have value. It's no different than old McDonald's, truth be told. A great example of how human minds can be confusing is this thing that happened with Payless. So Payless was going out of business and they wanted to prove a point. I'm going to drop the source in the chat. And what they did is they created a fake store. They changed the name of it. They changed the presentation of it. They threw on a French word. Can you share my screen right quick, Juju?
You don't ever have to ask me.
And what they did is I want y'all to, if you get time, to please go in and watch the video and watch people who considered themselves to be connoisseurs in this area discuss Payless shoes. They talk about how vibrant the colors are, how well the shoe is made, and the literally only difference is the store and the presentation. That's it. Another example, which came from the same book, Predictably Irrational, was a story about black pearls, where a man created a frenzied cry to buy black pearls that were coming out of one of the Australian islands, and how he convinced the American populace that black pearls had value, and they went plumb berserk. Another example, and the reason why this is important is because this is the big one. Kuwait, I did this in our conversation with Logic, hired an advertising firm to go and convince the American people to join in a war. And she went, the advertising firm understood the complexity of human relationship, and she went before Congress. She was the daughter of a diplomat. Went before Congress and told stories of how little babies couldn't get formula and treatment and they were dying. And the American people rose up in anger and sent troops to war. And when they came back, they had all types of mental complications. I forget what they called it at the end of that war. They had a different word. Now we call it PTSD, but they had another word the syndromes that came out of that war. All because they understood the nature of human beings, understood how public perception and social reality can move at physical changes on human beings. And I think that's a very important point, because you'll get pulled on your heartstrings. We coming up to a political season, and you're going to hear a lot of advertisement and words and displays to try to convince you that this person is better than that person, and they're going to pull on these social realities. This guy is racist. This guy is an idiot. This guy is old. And we have in our minds these own perceptions on what these terms mean. And it will try to persuade you to make an irrational decision. And it's predictable that you will be irrational. That's what that book is trying to explain to you. Thank you.
And God Killer, I just want to say, whenever you want to jump in, just jump in. But Juju, go ahead and go right into communication. Yep, go ahead and go right into communication, Juju.
Yeah, always dropping bombs. Always. Like, bah, 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 bah. I'm so congested. Please forgive me, y'all. Give me just a second. Don't say that. Okay. So communication is important, right? Because to do all the things as far as the 5 C's, I think communication is a very vital one. We have to be able to interact, and we have to be able to understand each other's interact in order to come to a consensus or even create this type of social reality, social constructs. Remember, because in the definitions it talks about not an individual but a group, a culture, You feel me? Because again, and I'll keep going back to it, when we talked about cultures creating different minds, these different minds create these different social constructs, social realities. And that's basically through communication. You understand what I'm saying? Like there's an agreement of
Mm-hmm.
what's going on, and the things that are happening by either the majority of the people or the ruling class. I will say that, right? Because in America, African Americans ain't the ruling class, but there's some stuff going on that we definitely do not agree on, or that's not necessarily beneficial to us. I'll just leave it at that. But communication is important for those things to take place. Definitely. And well, this will go into what the 5 C's actually represent as a totality. But I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit. You could bring it back but I'll jump ahead a little bit because this is perfect definition. Because in communication, I which the 5 C's leads to, I'm gonna say it, abstraction. Even lets your brain, that type of processing lets your brain is simple sounds into words, and words into ideas. And this is what helps you to um, be able to learn, a language, even as a baby, and even other languages. So, communication is very vital, and it. So different animals communicate, but I like what Logic said as far as complex. We have to put in complex social beings, like complex social reality, and different things like that. And our communication is a bit more complex. And I definitely want to caveat with the notion that we as pseudo killers, and most of us that follow along, um, do not adhere to, well, most of us. I know for myself, and I think most people on here do not necessarily adhere to humans being a superior being, but there are some things that definitely is a human a thing rather than all animals or mammals. I will have to say that there are some separations, and this perhaps the 5 C's, and it is said, abstraction is absolutely one of those things. I'm
Even with, oh, go ahead,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead,
drop
you
my
go ahead.
yacht there. I was going to
Okay,
drop
cool.
my yacht there, and
Okay, even in communication, like I said, we're calling the 5 C's to explain how our brains can create reality. So we've covered creativity, now communication, right? Now,
mhm.
even in communication, she says efficient communication for us usually includes language. Now, I want y'all to understand, I'm going to go back to what you just said about a collective, how to move the collective, how to move the masses along. She says, I tell you that I need gas. I don't have to explain that I'm talking about my vehicle, not my digestive system. I don't have to explain that I plan to drive to a gas station in the near future. So just the simple thought of that, our brain conjures these features, and so does yours, allowing us to communicate efficiently. Strictly speaking, words are not necessary for reality on a small scale, but on a massive scale, you're talking about nation building. The communication is very important, and she sums it up by saying, language is more efficient than symbols. Imagine trying to establish and teach a country's driving laws without using words. That's how important communication is. And a lot of times, one of the things in the quote unquote conscious community, you hear words like debate and discourse and things like that. When in actuality, a lot of times they're just arguing and yelling at each other, and they calling it discourse, or they calling it that. But I loved when we did the debate with Logic and Marcus from the idea of what God Killer said. And to be honest, God Killer, if you want to come off mute and explain why you kind of told us to do this, is when you were saying about how we shouldn't use the word debate. We should use high level conversation, and just the importance of that. You know what I mean? That
Mhm.
level of communication, because people looked at that conversation that we had not as a debate, but as a come here with an empty cup to learn. But God Killer, if you want to explain what went into you saying that, I'd appreciate it.
First of all, everything we do over here, yo, we want to stay on the cutting edge and being original. And so just over the years, it was always a push to get the high level conversations. And when I say high level conversation, I mean individuals involved in the high level conversation. Information got to be close as accurate as possible for a novice. Meaning you should be able to take that conversation and have that same conversation with an expert in the field. And then you will recognize whether you had a piece of shit conversation or if you had a high level conversation. There's actually people around us that has that corny ass trash conversation. It's not the high level, and experts can hear it. They can hear it's just trash. So high level simply is it goes on the course of intellect. It goes on the course of being well read, understanding the types of material you're reading. You know what I'm saying? Everything is right where it's supposed to be. So that's a high level. Now the debate conversation in this community, niggas say any damn thing. Right?
Facts.
Information be all over the place. They don't gotta be right. You know, people is judging you on your swag. They judging you on if they familiar with it and it sound good to them. They don't care if it's right or not. So that's not a high level conversation. The debates around here are not high level debates, not at all. So I felt like let's stay away from that. Let's just have the high level conversations.
And even with communication, before we go to copying, one of the things that we create, even in our smaller groups amongst the masses, we create our own terms that people different understand. God Killer is famous for saying things like where the rubber meets the road. We in the middle of the street right now. To other people, they have no idea what we talking about. But if you're in this community and you watch our shows, you know exactly what it is that we're talking about. On other scales, you know what I mean? It's just, in order to move things forward, communication is so key, and that goes right into copying. So now we've talked about creativity, we've talked about copying. That's the 5 C's. Now on the third C is copying. We also need brains that learn by reliably copying one another in order to establish laws and norms to live in harmony. How do you teach your children? Have you ever been walking with your children or been in a car with your children and you're cursing, and then your child just mimics exactly what it is that you said,
Let
or
me
how
say
you
something.
eat? Go ahead, Juju.
Children covet what they see. So that's
Mm.
almost like, excuse me,
Mm-hmm.
innate or evolutionary, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you finish, and then I'll jump on into that if you don't say everything
No,
that
no
I
problem
want
at
to
all.
say.
No, no problem at all. I'm going straight from the source material. I'm just captain in the boat, but y'all are more important. Y'all the ones that's flying the sails and steering where I'm just steering where we go, and y'all get it done for us. But this, I thought about God Killer and the pseudo killers when we said this. We teach them to newcomers, right? Not only to smooth like norms, right? As we're trying to wire the little brains to the world, we teach them, the newcomers, not only to smooth day-to-day interactions, but to help the newcomers survive. My God Killer, you're gonna like this one. I've read about explorers in the 1800s who ventured into inhospitable, uncharted parts of the world, where many of them died. But the expeditions that survived were the ones whose members became acquainted with the indigenous people in those regions. They taught the explorers what to eat, how to prepare the food, what to wear, and other secrets of survival in this unfamiliar climate. So, if all individual humans had to figure out everything themselves without copying, our species would be extinct.
Yeah, see.
Yes. Go ahead, God Killer.
Well, that's the whole point right there. That's the whole thing.
Mm.
And so we got people around here that clearly don't understand that want to throw away things that the past has brought us. It's crazy, right? Science is based off of building off of the things like nature. You know how they say nature's under no obligation, right? Yeah, I mean, to tell you anything, to make you understand it at all. So we got to make those steps, and as we make those steps and those strides, right? We grow from that, and so it's important to be able to grow from those strides, to be able to grow for those things. And like you said, if some steps you don't know, you better be finding somebody to do, or else your ass is grass.
What I
Perfect. Go
was
ahead, Juju.
sorry, I'm in trouble.
Hmm.
What I was saying, what I was going to add to that, as far as we're talking about copying, right? I just want to make sure I'm on
Hmm.
the right. See,
Yep. Yep.
you know, I'm all over the place sometimes. Copying. So something that I learned from God Killer, or just becoming more scientifically literate, is that nature chooses the path of least resistance. And as we've been learning, also, um, damn, I lost my point of thought. When it comes to survival, nature favors things that are efficient, and so if you're going off of that alone, which that's very important, some things ain't got to be so complicated to get it right. Then you will understand that copying would actually be very efficient. Like, why reinvent the wheel over and over again? And I've said this a lot in many different situations. Like, it doesn't make logical sense, right? So, but there are two dynamics. If we're talking about human beings, and if we're getting into culture and things that humans created, because we know in some communities, particularly dealing with abos, and I'll get into it a little bit because this is important, and I love this one. Is they will always say, oh, black people around the world, they had to get it from us. They had to get it from us. And the reason why I be begging God Killer to get Soy Kiata is because one of the things I wanted him to discuss, and this is where I heard it from, by way of Asar posting a video, something about Soy Kiata or paper, and it spoke on polytopicity. Very interesting, right? And polytopicity is very, very important, because there's two sides of that coin. Yes, copying is very favorable, right? Humans humaning, humans trading goods, but along also with trading goods, they were trading ideas, right? How can we do things better? How can you do things more efficient? Because think about it, human beings in ancient times or beginning of civilizations didn't have the same resources, or how shall I say, time of acquisition for certain resources, right? So time was of the essence. So you can reinvent the wheel all over again and take up time, but that might cost you lives, right? Lives in food production or whatever you might need it that wheel for. Maybe the wheelbarrow, or to transport materials to build structures and different things like that. But the other part of that was polytopicity. Kind of off subject. Maybe I won't even talk about it. But yeah, that's the importance of copying. One of the major things, and I was able to connect that. It's efficiency, right? It's less on the body budget. For real.
Yeah, I was listening to a couple other times when they were talking about the shows, right? And I've been getting into anthropology, right, since
Hmm.
I've been in the Discord. And there was a line that somebody said the other day. I don't know if it was maybe God Killer. I forgot who it was, but they were even talking about in the human migrations. It's not as though all these human migrations, they were just swinging swords or machetes and cutting down trees and stuff like that. It was a brilliant thing. They were following animal trails, trails that were already paved. They weren't actually always creating their own way. They were following the ways of the trails that were already blazed. I thought that was really good. Go ahead, God Killer.
Yeah,
Yep,
right.
yeah, you're right. Animals, that is, yeah,
Hmm.
they the first ones that make trains. A lot of animals predate humans anyway.
Fire. So we did the three C's:
You done, God
creativity.
Killer? Wait a minute. I think
No,
you went
did he
out.
cut out? Oh yeah, did he
Yeah,
cut out?
God
Okay.
Killer. Give me a second. Um, I will go ahead and add polytopicity in real quick, because it's one of my
Okay, go
favorite
ahead.
concepts, along with copying. Copying is more
Okay.
efficient, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if there's so copying will have to come from, also, if it's different cultural groups or people groups. Um, um, what's the word? Accessibility and um, damn, I lost the word. Proximity. Proximity is very important. I don't think people understand
Mm-hmm.
how important proximity is concerning humans, human development, civilization, development of civilizations and different things like that. The more I started reading anthropology and sociology and things like that, proximity comes up. And because of being a criminologist, you actually deal a little bit with sociology. And I took a few anthropology classes because I was going in a different direction. But if you don't have those things to actually copy and you're like an isolated group, then you might actually be recreating the will. Does that mean that you copied it from somebody else? No. And that's the term polytopicity, where you have different cultures and people groups who haven't had any contact, creating or building structures or innovations or technologies that are uniquely similar, if not the same, you know. So that's I wanted to bring that point up because that's a point that a lot of times you can shut, you know, different pseudos down, especially when it's like, oh, black people all over the world, we show people everything. No, you didn't. Like, you know.
Nice.
So I just, that's just a little extra. That's a second helping of food. But go on.
No. Oof. You know, I think sometimes y'all just say stuff that just comes off the top of the brain, and it gives a nice little bow. Hey Marcus, do you want to do I was gonna just shoot through cooperate, right? Do you mind doing compress when I'm done? Or you want to
Nah,
do
go ahead.
cooperate?
Go ahead.
Okay,
Nah,
okay.
go ahead. You can do. You
All
can
right, no,
do.
Yeah,
because
I
I
was
just
studying
realized
them.
I ain't heard from Marcus in about 20
Nah,
minutes. I
he
want to
said he
make sure
wanted
my
to do
brother's still
compression. You
here.
know, that's the most technical
Yeah,
one.
compression is technical. You know what's
Yeah,
funny, Juju? I think we on the same page
yeah. But I
because I
learned
actually want to learn from Marcus when it comes to compress
right.
because I read it, but I didn't fully get it. I won't lie to you,
I
but
did get it, and I think it goes
hmm
back to some of the more difficult chapters in the source material. But I ain't
hmm
gonna lie, the five C's, I was definitely learning the four for sure. Like I can get compression. If I can explain that, I'm gonna be able to explain these. But it wasn't hard because I felt like it was a culmination. This was actually what she wanted to give us, but she had to
hmm
give us. She had to, walk with us in baby steps, right? Give us some bits of food so that we can actually eat and that be easily digestible so we can conceptualize the information. And then when we got here, I was like, oh, that's why I was able to put together the Palestine and Israel connection and why she kept talking about that, because it fits. Shout out to Chill in the building. And I mean,
Oh,
Kevin
peace to
Chill
MC
heard.
Chill. What's going on, bro?
Yeah, and because it fits a lot of the conversation pieces or the elements she's discussing in this source material, particularly in this chapter when we have the culmination of different cultures creating different minds and then the creation of social realities and social constructs. I mean, that is such a very visual, in your face example that right now, today, as we speak, cannot be denied, because it's all over the
Mm,
news.
mm.
So,
So we've been covering the suite of abilities called the 5 C's that make up social reality, right? So we did creativity, we did communication, we did copying, but now we're going to get into cooperation, right? So in order for us to understand, right, the social reality, one of the things that we need brains that cooperate on a vast geographical scale. Even the most mundane act like reaching into a kitchen cupboard for a can of beans is possible only because of other humans. And that's what I love about these conversations when you do research. It makes we apply these things in our day to day life so that you humble yourself and realize that when you turn on that water, there's a long set of circumstances that had to happen in order for that water to come on. Marcus made a comment the other day in our Discord. He said, nobody cares about water until you turn the faucet on
and
and
there's
nothing
none.
comes out.
Yeah, that's so tight.
Oh man,
That
and
was
see, this is
perfect.
what I mean, bro. These are words, these are phrases that challenge you every day. So, for example, right, when you go into a cabinet and you reach for the beans, one of the things you got to remember is that somebody watered those beans, probably thousands of miles away.
Yeah.
Other humans mined the metal for the can that you're reaching for. Other humans transported the beans to your local store. You paid for the beans with money that was invented. That store was made by other humans with wood, nails, and bricks. It's blessed and regulated by a government of other humans. So understand that when you reach for that can of beans, if we didn't have cooperation, if we didn't have at least the four C's: creativity, communication, copying, and cooperation, that you wouldn't have been in the all of those things. And thanks to a shared social reality, thousands of people, just for you to grab a can of beans, thousands of people had to be in the right place at the right time, doing the right things, just so you can grab those cans and make dinner. See, what we're talking about is nation building.
Right.
If you're talking about trying to keep this social reality going, it humbles you and you appreciate things on a larger scale. For example, uh, Kevin Chilherd and Juju, they're going to Egypt in April. Now, take that can of beans, get that out of your mind, and I want you to just picture how many things have to fall in place or had to have fallen in place in order for just them to touch down the soil in Egypt. The plane, the who made the jet fuel, who trained the stewardesses. So many processes and systems had to be in place, all working together, all at the right time, all at the right place, with all the right timing, in order to get it done. Before we get into compression, I want to shout out the chat. Shout out to American Dream. This is about nation building. What nation? I knew you'd ask that
No, don't
question.
don't
Shout
don't
out to.
don't
I'm not
even
doing it. Shout
don't
out to
even
Miss Lisa. I appreciate these people. It is what it is. Zane, great questions. Chef, I really appreciate all the comments that you're making. So unless anybody wants to chime
except
in
for the
on
Nzinga
cooperation,
comments, but we ain't gonna go there.
it is what it is. Free. Unless you want to, before we get into compression by Marcus,
I want to say one
the
more
fifth
thing.
C, go ahead and get into cooperation.
Um, Cooperation. So, even what is it? North Korea? Is that what the crazy guy Kim Jong Fat is? Somebody confirm that? Am
Yeah,
I saying
that's North Korea. That's not his name, but Kim
what's this?
North Korea. It's going. Let's just go with Kim Jong. But go ahead.
So,
Go ahead.
what's his name? Yeah.
No, I think it's Kim Jong Un, but I think he passed. I'm not sure. I
No,
gotta
that
look
nigga
into
ain't
it.
fast. He's still
Okay,
alive.
so Kim Jong Un then. Yeah, Kim Jong Un.
Okay, Kim. That dude named Kim, right? So, and I'm gonna talk on nuclear warfare. We're gonna talk about Russia and Cuba, and Kim Jong Un. Okay, thank you, Ronald. Where I get fat from. um, so even though we have these conflicts, or you have these governments that other governments, or people in the government don't necessarily agree with. Shout out to hits in the building. Um, there's still a level of cooperation, because even if there was a level of cooperation, just imagine, the results of what was that before the contraband issue, before the Cold War, what that could have turned into, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or whatnot. So yeah, it takes a level of cooperation, not only for us crazy behind humans this day and age, with the technology we don't necessarily need, because I don't think we need it. You know what I'm saying? We don't need a type of weaponry that can destroy literally the planet or human life as we know it. Like that's beyond logical. But the level of cooperation to not um abuse that type of technology or power to have grave circumstances. Uh
Mm.
but not only that, being social beings, and I'm thinking about ancient humans, you needed that cooperation
Yep.
to survive. Like, there's no way. Well, I don't know, but in my opinion, from what I know about science, there's no way one human would have been able to cross the desert, or make it over the barriers between um those humans trying to come out of Africa to other parts of the world, right? It would literally have to take a group um cooperating to do something that phenomenal. And that's literally phenomenal. It took a lot of time. took a lot of time, but still, you feel me? Our era of existence is very small, when we want to talk about human evolution. You
Mm-hmm.
get what I'm saying? So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think about things like that when we're having these discussions. Like, let's take it to different time frames of human evolution or our even existence and try to place these concepts on the people living at that time, or even the archaic humans living at that time. Like, what would that have been like, or would those concepts even be valid? And yes,
Mm.
they would be very valid still. There's no way. I mean, there's no way we can do certain things now with all the technology we have. You feel me? But yeah, now, it's feasible to travel by yourself. It ain't that fun, especially if you're trying to go from like Florida to California, but it could be done. I wouldn't think that would be very feasible or fruitful if it was, traveling by yourself in different times. I just want to say that about cooperation. I wonder if other people think like that too when we're having these conversations.
I think it's amazing. I think it's, when she starts talking about, it's one thing to say social reality, then we're going to get into Marcus. When you get into social reality, I think the five C's is a good way to categorize, right? Actually, socially construct the social reality. You know what I mean? It's to
Mhm.
actually put a label on it and help you understand it better. So we've already covered creativity, we've covered communication, we covered copying, right? Right. And now we
Mhm.
cover cooperation. And now Mr. Chilawambe. I know that's not how you pronounce it, but that's how I do.
Shalom way.
I know it's Chilemwe, but Chilawambe just sounds so smooth and clean. We're gonna have you do compression, and if you don't mind, Marcus, can you take compression all the way through to abstract, right? Take it through abstract and complexity, if you don't mind.
Well, since you asked so kindly, I guess I don't really have. No, I don't have a problem with it. So compression is very unique with humans. Very, very unique. Um, there's very little evidence that other animals have the ability uh, to use this functionality. That is to think abstractly. Um, so when you talk about abstract is a unique function. If I was to name something like a bouquet of flowers, a
Mm.
ring, bouquet
Bottle
of
of wine,
flowers,
champagne,
a bottle of wine, and jewelry.
champagne,
Huh?
not the wine, the champagne.
Okay. All right.
That's champagne. Let me stop. I'm not
Yeah,
going
that's champagne. Something I don't know. I'm a hard liquor guy. So
Oh god.
if you was to take all these things, right, um, as individuals, items, we say flowers or a bouquet of flowers or flowers you grow them, but collectively we can think of them abstractly as in their function, how we could use them as gifts, right? So all those things as individually can be construed as a ring, as a piece of jewelry, wine, alcohol, but together we could say these are gifts that people give. That's the abstraction. The reason why we're able to do that is because of compression. What they believe happens with compression has to do with the actual shape of humans' brains, cerebral cortex. So let me go ahead and get to it, share my screen. Let's make sure I got the. Yep, that's it.
Can I read a quick definition?
Go ahead.
Um, this is about abstraction, right? And in the source material, compression, it says compression enables sensory uh, integration, which enables abstraction. Abstraction permits your highly complex brain to issue flexible predictions. Because remember, we've been talking about predictions, how prediction is efficient to our survival, right? To issue flexible predictions based on the function of things rather than the physical, rather than their physical forms. That would be a definition, but he just explained it to y'all.
Yeah. So if y'all see my screen, this is not actually how it is. It's there to describe the process that's going on. If you remember, I think it was the second episode, we talked about a specific, very large neuron that almost goes from your brain down to your whole nervous system. It's huge. And in whales, it's almost the size of half of a basketball court, just size wise. Different neurons function differently, and they communicate with each other through this idea of abstraction. They used to think it was closely tied to mirror neurons. It's not. It's a function thing. So when I use an image, right? There used to be an idea that humans had specific neurons for specific faces at specific times. What they realize is that you have a general sense of what a face is. That's that first layer, the very big ones. The sensory information is coming in. As it moves down, it becomes more specific. You may divide it into male, female, color, depending on your culture. And it'll continue going on down there until the neuron that has specifics for identity becomes the play. So big neurons, a lot of sensory information. Smaller neurons abstract that sensory information to draw conclusions. Error management system, which we were going to talk about earlier today, works off of this concept. And then when things go wrong with it, it adjusts this abstractability to add more data into it. So that's how compression works. It's a very fascinating thing. So if we were to go, let me show you this right here. Okay, so this is the overall cerebral cortex, and it has a lot to do. And you will hear us talk, no matter when you're talking about behavior, how people function, these will become intimate in the conversation. These are the areas of the brain that have, without a doubt, play a serious role in how we imagine ourselves in this social reality. So you see part of the overall functional areas is the premotor cortex. That's voluntary muscle movement. Premotor SMC, which is the supplementary motor cortex. That's a whole nother thing. Frontal eye field. These are all going to be part of your sensory motor. So you see where it says premotor cortex, you see toe, foot, leg, trunk, arm, face. They believe that this section is divided. So this is where sensory information comes from for your nose. I mean, from your toe. These are the neurons that affect. Then you got prefrontal cortex, which is your executive function, behavior, and personality. Now, why does this matter? Because while we don't know how, no, I don't want to say how, why it evolved and the points to which it did evolve, we can see its function in it. And we don't know exactly how it switches from sensory data to abstraction, but we see the process of it happen. So it's similar to the similar thing about, I don't want to say really dark matter, but that's the best example I can come up with off the top of my head, how we see the effects of it, though we don't actually see exactly the process of what's going on in that. Y'all can always check out our Galaxy and Beyond show on the Space. It's an awesome show. Shout out to Juju and Big Dog Ant. So that's how that works. Now you say, okay, well, what does that mean? Remember, we're dealing with social reality. Well, there are studies out now that show that if you come from a communal community, they tend to like Asia, China mostly, because there's enough documentation on human migrations in China. That's a whole nother story. And you present them with something like, an example would be, it's hard to describe, but it's where you give a category of two things. So let's say you say lion, zebra, and a tree or grass, right? The collective
Okay.
society, would go with the zebra and the grass. They associate that in the abstraction, while individual societies would go with the zebra and the lion, right? This is how social reality influence how you abstractly think of the thing. Look at a picture. Collective societies, you will look at the whole picture. Um, Individual societies, you will isolate to the center of the picture. If you ask people to draw their family in a collective society, majority of them will draw a picture of each person being individually important, as in dimension size in the picture. So a child would be smaller, but it would be proportionate. In an individual society, you tend to draw yourself disproportionately bigger. These type things that we see when you look at a picture, these type things is all constructed upon this abstraction, social reality, compression, and all 5 C's play a role in how we view who we are. And I want you to know that there has been no evidence of humans being able to control this processes anytime. Just want to throw that caveat in there. So we did a show about it. We talked about how when children are born, they have a wide lens view, and then it narrows down to what's important. Again, there's the value system.
Spotlighting.
Spotlight, exactly. That's the value system being put in place. That's the abstraction. This is food. This is not food. This is important. This is not important. And then we construct, your brain constructs what that looks like to you as an individual. Did I cover enough, Brass, or would you like me to keep going?
No, I think you did it exactly how. I mean, I wanted you to do it in one way. You did it in another way, and it was actually more perfect than what I said. So, no, I appreciate that. Juju, do you have anything that you wanted to add to that before we move forward? I just want to let y'all know we got about 30 more minutes that we're going to invite people, because this is the finale of the show. About 20 more minutes. We got the finale show for the book. Then we're going to move on to other books, other knowledge that we can share based on what we read from the experts.
Go ahead and tell them what it is.
Death of expertise. But I want to
But
do that at the end, though. But just, y'all can go out and
just
purchase that if you
saying,
want to. Because
it's
I
about
think
time
that, yeah,
nickel.
like the guy killer makes the funniest faces. The one of the things
Hey.
he'll just look at
That's
you
my
and check you out.
expertise. That's my baby right there. I'm gonna lead the
Yeah.
way. No study
Yeah.
classes, no none of that. Hey.
Who's having study classes?
Shit.
Who's
Oh
doing
man,
that?
no, I like that book. That
Who the
book is
hell was doing
important.
study classes?
Not
See how people
moving
want to
forward.
get funny? I'm gonna keep it simple, but okay.
Forward. Moving forward
Yeah,
to keep this train
Brass,
rolling.
we got to let some
I'm gonna keep
family up
it
in here,
simple.
man. Some
Let them
family up
in.
in here.
Let them in. I'm not controlling that part. That's
Ain't
Juju.
nobody else back here. I don't know what the hell you're
I
talking
mean,
about.
drop the link, man. Let the family up here,
Oh
man.
yeah,
The link
drop the
is in
link.
the
That's
chat,
cool. This is the
homie.
finale. Yeah,
Let me
this is the
mute.
finale show.
This
This
the
the
best
finale show.
goddamn show
Bring
we
it
done
home with
had in
all of
weeks.
us. Yeah, this the finale show. We're gonna bring it home. I like what you did with compression. So those 5 C's with the suite of the abilities to basically explain social reality. So once again, just to go over it, we got creativity, we have cooperation, we have copying, we have communication, and last but not least, compression. And I think it's very important to understand. And I saw that free will shot that you made, Marcus. You did it ever so educationally, but it was definitely a shot right across the bow from logic to logic, probably. But I really appreciate these conversations. Like I said, if you don't understand what we do and you're listening to what we're doing, rather than take it in and argue or take it in and try to, create some kind of division, why don't you take some of these things in and apply it to your life, apply it to your children, communicate better with your family, you know, Be more careful about the things you do in front of your children. You know,
That
cooperate with
part.
others. Understand that whatever you've done up to this point, there's a lot of people that brought you, that got you to this point. Go
Question.
Yeah,
ahead.
we
Go
got.
ahead,
Why
bro. God
Wait,
Loki
killer.
always why Loki always throwing shots at Nzinga,
wait a
yo? He just
minute.
make up his own shit, yo.
No,
No,
don't do that.
because we gonna go to another show. I
Wait a
Make up
know
his
minute.
own shit.
We actually got 2 questions from Ronald in the chat. Please, if
it.
y'all
Okay,
could.
Now
go ahead.
I want to address Loki's question.
Okay,
No.
hold on, hold on,
What
hold
do you
on.
mean,
Because
no?
we have 1 hour 40 minutes. We got about 10 more minutes left of just content. Let's just cover that, and then we'll cover Ronald's questions. Bring some people in. Hit the link in the chat. You can experience up close the last 10 minutes of 7.5 Lessons of the Brain by Lisa Feldman Barrett. This book has been in my family. I've been having strange conversations with my mom. My mom think I'm going crazy because I'm telling her about no free will and compatibilism
Yeah,
and
that's funny.
determinism. She's talking about the brain is a network, all these kinds of things. And these are the things we use to challenge. So on the last quote that I want to use, right? I'm gonna read 3 sentences and then we're gonna bring it home, right? Or a paragraph. We don't create a fantasy world to escape reality. We create it to be able to stay. Social reality is so powerful that it can alter the speed and course of our genetic evolution. Another example is China's one child policy, which, in a culture that values sons over daughters, led to more male offspring than female and ultimately to millions of Chinese men who cannot marry Chinese women. And the last sentence, and I know this is going to get God Killer going absolutely crazy. This is why I want to finish it on a clean note so we can move on to other topics like Nzinga and all this other stuff. The last one that she puts in the book, and it's fat, it's kind of bittersweet, but she literally says, and I can't make this up, the concept of race often includes physical characteristics such as skin tone. The concept of race. So with that, and I'm not trying to speed it through, but I see that we're moving on to other things. I appreciate everybody that took that ride with us to this book. I hope you go out and get the book. Lisa Feldman Barrett, 7.5 Lessons on the Brain. Juju, I know you want to get in and kind of give a synopsis of maybe the end of the chapter or even the book. But Juju, I want to say something to you and Marcus. This is my first book that I completed with the Pseudo Killers. And I want to be very clear that I appreciate the opportunity. It's not something that I take as a right, it's a privilege to even be on this panel discussing and sharing with people. It gave me a bird's eye view, not to just when y'all say that we're about experts and sharing expert information, not our own. This book was a perfect example and a crash course as to how pseudo killers work. So I want to say thank you, right? Because it's been a long road. But Juju, Marcus, take us home, and then y'all can do whatever it is that y'all want to do. Go ahead, Juju.
I just want to say you did an excellent job leading the show. You're so.
it's not my first rodeo. I see what we
Yeah, I
doing.
know, but you're so good at it. That's
Nah, I
awesome.
can dig it.
You did awesome with the debate. Yeah. So I gotta go to. Thank you very much, because yeah, I wasn't really feeling it. But one monkey doesn't stop the show. You feel me? Like
Yes, ma'am.
it must go on. So that's all I have to say. This was great education, great learning, great dialogue and discussion. We covered so many things dealing with this source material, including some important ones that I'll mention here today. I'm gonna take my time with this.
Hmm.
ACEs, acquired childhood experiences, a very important subject that we touched on more than once, a few times, more than few. Um, Dealing with this source material. And if you visit some previous shows, we have links and sources from the CDC concerning ACEs, which are important, plus an ACEs test that one can take in the privacy of your own home that will measure your childhood trauma. Because we also spoke about in the source material about being someone who actually adds to someone's body budget rather than taking it away. because when you're taking away from someone's body budget, you're causing them to have chronic or toxic stress. We talked about that, right? And how prolonged chronic and toxic stress could actually shorten your lifespan, right? So all these things are very important to understand. One, how your childhood trauma could actually be affecting others, not just in your home, but your friends, your workspace, and things of that nature. Um, and and two, how we can do better if we do have childhood trauma, more or less for our children, right? Because those are the ones that are going to be carrying the brunt of that particular experience that could perhaps be very damaging. And then we talked about the societal repercussions for all of this, and how this can be easily remedied or helped by us just being more honest with ourselves, and not being afraid to ask for help. um yeah, and just really having honest conversations about lots of things. So yeah, I definitely love this book, and I will say, hopefully soon, to actually continue on with some of the things that were said. My thing is child advocacy, so I actually want to bring a professional that deals with soft parenting skills. um it's the indomitable black man, and you can catch him on TikTok or Instagram, and he is absolutely phenomenal. So if I can get him on, he's actually a friend of mine, and yeah, he's gonna help instruct parents, whoever wants to. We're gonna talk about some things, and then he'll offer some resources about how to actually soft parent. And if you don't know what that is, that means being able to parent your children without whipping or spanking them. I know that's another controversial issue, but the science actually supports soft parenting rather than the other. But yeah, that's all I have to say about it. Shall be continued.
Marcus, take us home. You were one of the people that kind of pushed this book. This book pushed a free will conversation in the Discord that led to a high level conversation. So I appreciate you for even taking us this far in regards to it. So take us home, and then we're gonna go right into God Killer. Go ahead, Marcus. Cover whatever you want to cover, bro. The floor is yours.
So I want to thank everyone who went on this journey with us. I personally love learning about human behavior, evolution, evolutionary psychology, evolutionary neurology, uh, and I'm glad that I was able to share a passion that I have for this specific subject with all of you in the YouTube world that followed along. I know that sometimes these were complex subjects, difficult at times, frustrating at times, but I'm grateful for those who went and got the book, followed along with us. Grateful for those who tuned into the show. Grateful for those who comment, who ask questions. I want to keep in mind that I am, nor are we experts, but we enjoy
Mm.
listening to the experts and grasping to some limited degree this conversation. And I want us to recognize that each and every one of us who have participated in this show took time out of their lives to research, add to, discuss. In the Discord, this conversation has been intense. We've argued, we've fought, we've typed whole books in the chat in the Discord over this conversation, understanding and trying to find the best methods to bring this before you. I appreciate all the pseudo killers who um, encouraged each and every one of us, not just the pseudo killers, but the pseudo killer army who pushed and engaged in conversations to make sure that the information we shared with y'all was in its best possible light. I know that there's some questions that we haven't answered, or there's more that you want to know about. Um, and I would just encourage you to let this not be the end of your journey, but just the beginning of analyzing good scientific information. Um, and I hope that this will help better not only you, but your family too, being able to have these conversations and understand what you see to some degree. I want to leave you with an important point that Miss Barrett left towards the end of her book about social reality and its impact on our lives. And I think she was driving this the whole time. Think her goal was to open our minds to the possibilities that things could be different. Not in the sense that we think, but in the sense that when you understand and know, your brain then begins to predict better. So she leaves it with something like this. Every type of social reality is a dividing line. Some dividing lines help people, such as driving laws that prevent head-on collisions. Other dividing lines benefit some people and hurt others, such as slavery and social class. People debate the morality of such dividing lines, but like it or not, each of us bears some responsibility every time we reinforce them. A superpower works best when you know you have it. That superpower that she's referring to is the evolutionary process that brought our brains to be the way they are today. And because of that process, we now have a chance to engage in a life that can be somewhat precious to each and every one of us. Um, and it's not a necessity that we necessarily have to continue to divide ourselves based on these negative social constructs, that it is possible, no matter how probable it is, it's nevertheless possible that your brains can begin to predict and predict better so that you will have a higher quality of life. And during this show, I wanted to try to find a statement, a single line that would summarize just this whole community and the conversation and some of the other conversations that we had. And I came across it, and I think it fits very well. And that is, the truth has no defense against a fool determined to believe a lie. And if you choose to ignore the scientific information and live your life however you choose to live it, you will suffer the consequences whether you like it or not. Thank you.
Marcus, if you don't mind, I would be remiss if I did not ask you to repeat that last line.
So
I would be remiss. Just say it one more time for posterity.
And a read.
And then we'll go right into God Killer to take us home. Please say that line one more time.
So I wanted to summarize it in a single sentence, a single line, and I was looking for something. And so this is what I think fits. The truth has no defense against a fool determined to believe a lie.
Oh my God.
What? Against smashing and believing a lie? What? What you say?
I knew it. I want to thank y'all for taking this ride with us. That is the end of the Brain Show. We've been doing this for feel like 2 years. And we actually put a nice bow on it. But now I challenge you. I always finish with a challenge. I put the source material for the book in there. I put the name of the book in there. Apply it to your children. You know, little lines about, you know, your children not listening to you as effectively after the age of 13. If that makes you focus more on your younger child that's 7 in your house right now, hopefully we helped you. ACEs, all of these different things, the brain being a network, how the brain constructs realities, just different things like that. Take it, This is source material. You can go back into the Pseudo Killer archives and watch the show. You can start at the first chapter and go all the way through and read the book along with it. It's important. So I appreciate you. I humbly thank you, plus the chat, plus the mods, everybody, and the Pseudo Killers. God Killer, the show, you got the keys.
Man, them lying fools. Them fools that lie. Oh, what tangle where we weave when the fools practice to deceive. Man, come on, family, hit that link, man. Come up here and join us, man. Know y'all got something to say about the show, man. What y'all thought about it, man? Get up here and join us, man. Get our first call up in here, man. Y'all know
Felisa, hit the link. Sakina, Gemini, hit the link. Ronald, hit the link.
Oh, you stupid.
Yeah, and this is not for questions. This is not for debate. This is just to celebrate. We've been working on this book for 4 months. This is to celebrate. This is the finale. We moving on to the next book. The next book will be The Death of Expertise
by Tom Nichols.
By Tom Nichols. And I think that, a lot of times, we've all been trying to move conversations and have conversations, but it's funny how no matter what conversations you have, that's the beauty of science, that's the beauty of reading, that's the beauty of research. All of these things intersect. That last line by Marcus, that's a timeless line that crosses over all the universes of conversation. I kind of say it a little different of, don't waste time trying to make somebody understand that their sole job is to make sure that they misunderstand you. You waste a lot of time trying to turn a rock into a flower. Talk to the flowers, help them. But God Killer, it's your show. I am done. I'm washing my hands of it, and hopefully on The Death of Expertise. I'm very excited about that. What is the reason why the next book, Death of Expertise, is the book that's going to be covered?
Oh, we got one.
Some wild ones.
I know Miss Lisa did not hit the panel. Let's go, Miss Lisa.
Them wild ones need to understand that expert thing, man. That's important, yo. We've been going through it over here. And then we find when people, since they want to still run their mouth, when they get around the experts, they crumble. They start singing rap songs, everything but what they supposed to have done. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Bars. Miss Sakina Ra and Miss Lisa.
About a rap song.
Hold on. I'm a seed to the Pseudo Killer Army. Then we're gonna go right into my newest favorite YouTuber, Sakina Ra. But go ahead, Miss Lisa. What you got to say?
All I wanted to say was can you hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
My favorite 2 parts were the C's that we just did and the dopamine. Yeah, my favorite 2 parts.
Yeah, them C's was dope, wasn't it?
Yes. And Marcus, I just want to tell you, you just go up notches every time you speak on subjects that I appreciate a lot. I mean, I do appreciate it when you come on. You too, God Killer. This coming from Vanessa, okay?
But anyway,
yeah, she ain't gonna let that go.
Oh God, that's hilarious.
Marcus, you rock so hard. Oh my God, your brain is, it is amazing. And the things you come up with for the shows that you want to do. Brass, I'm not gonna not mention you. You're a great captain to this rocky sea that we be on up here in the Pseudo Killers. Juju,
General, don't get it messed up.
Don't tell me what to say.
Yes, ma'am.
And Juju, your information that you do for the shows is beautiful. That's why I stand with y'all. I'm on God Killer, you okay too?
Thank you, sis. I appreciate that, sis.
All right. Hey, Sakina Love.
See?
I'm
okay.
leaving. That's why I don't come up here.
Okay.
I'm leaving.
Hey, she hit you with the Harlem Nights. The Harlem Nights. Stop shooting that little gun. Why you keep shooting that little gun?
I ain't mad at him. We all got jokes. I got the best jokes. He who laughs, laughs, laughs.
Miss Sakina Ra, first off,
Yeah.
congratulations on the success of your new show. And I want to give a special shout out to you because you have been here with us as if you was on the panel. You, Gemini the Goddess, Ronald Perkins, even American Dream. Y'all been here from day one of us starting in the first, matter of fact, the epilogue of the book. And you asked great questions. You participated. I appreciate it, and I wish you much success on your new show.
Thank you. I love the book. Listen, me and Gemini was going over the book today before the show started, and then it was actually about the chapter that we was ending with. So I really appreciated that as well. So you guys really rock.
Did y'all?
Yeah, y'all rock this last chapter. I only have one question. It's kind of toward Juliana and Marcus a little bit, only because I guess it's only for me, because when we said it was a young lady in the chat, I'm not sure who it was, but she was asking about domesticated. I guess she was saying domesticated affairs, something to that effect. And then I think, Marcus, you said we were kind of leaning toward that way because we I'm not exactly sure how you stated that, but I guess you said we were brought up that way, or we lean toward that way, to that degree. And then Juliana, you said something about let me get it right because I don't want to misquote you. You said I get it because you said something about we wasn't they said we taught everything or something to that degree, and that's not true, and I agree with that too. I agree with that.
When I was speaking on other pseudos, particularly abos or people who have this ideology that Black people were everywhere, one, and that we had to teach all other people groups or humans how to, you know, this and that, like everything that's an invention of man, or particularly early man, ancient man. Oh, it had to come from us, and that's simply not true.
That's not true. And I agree with that. But when I'm asking this particular piece is because when we say domesticated or civilized, now I'm not saying like as in saying we first or anything to that degree. I am saying, though, do you believe that somebody had to teach us how to be domesticated or civilized? That's something that we need to get from maybe home, or that's because that's where we become domesticated and civilized, from home, or even saying civilized as a family, a tribe, a union, and our culture or something. That's how we taking it when we say that kind of thing. When we say civilized, that is saying your family. We saying a union. We saying our tribes. We saying our communities. And so when we saying domesticated, we saying we're not being we being civilized. So I mean, are we saying that somebody has to teach us how to be civilized? Or you know what I'm saying?
I mean, it depends. I mean, I'm gonna ask anybody else. Do y'all agree that domesticated and civilized are synonymous? I don't. In a sense, they are.
Yeah, offhand, I would say yes. I can't, source it up. I'm sure somebody could, but I would say it sounds about right.
Yeah, you got to be taught rules and regulations. You know what I'm saying? You come up with, I mean, shit. Look, it's cultural at the end of the day. And you use domestication in the form of a wild animal. You domesticate them. Essentially, you take them from the wild and put them in a situation where their needs are met. Thus, they become domesticated.
She's talking about humans, though.
Exactly, but that's what when we saying this.
Damn, Juju, so you don't think I think she's talking about humans? You don't think I'm trying to make a?
So we talking about domesticated.
Look, see how you struck her up? Can I finish my point? Can I finish my point?
Let me shut up.
Without Juju interrupting me. She
Okay.
interrupted me. I'm saying, look at go to your local food market. You're fucking domesticated. All the animals and all the trees is right there at your food market. They just grown for you. Just like the animal, all your food is there for you. You domesticated. You ain't running out. Half y'all couldn't survive in the wild because you domesticated. That's all I was trying to say, Juju.
Yeah, your birthday over with.
I got to do my birthday. You dove on me telling me she was talking about
Your birthday over
humans.
with.
I knew she was talking about humans. I mean, I knew, but I was trying to show an example of how humans are animals.
Roger that.
So I had stepped away for a second. Were we talking about humans being domesticated?
Mm-hmm.
What were we talking about?
She got to start over. She got to let her start that over again.
Nah, we can talk about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We can talk about it in the Discord. That's all. That was my only question. Other than that, I appreciate y'all recommending the book. I appreciate us going through it the way we did, because this was a great book. It was a great lecture. I enjoyed Julia, you putting in the notes and stuff, how you did throughout the chapters. I actually loaded them down and I actually went through them like that. So that was a great help for me. Right.
You're welcome. I'm glad someone appreciated it. But her point was, damn, I lost it again.
Oh,
but,
how?
Her point was about, did someone teach us to be domesticated, civilized? So she was pairing those two. And thank you, Sakina, because I actually just learned something just now. So she was juxtaposing those two, or had those side by side, far as humans that someone had to teach us. Wasn't that where you're going, or how our families help to domesticate, or civilize us in a sense? I thought you were going like, how did that come about, though? You feel me? But then I posed the question, did they even mean the same? So I kind of took it off the track. But I think you were getting to the point, well, how did that come about, right? How did domestication come about?
Yeah, because I'm saying, do you really think that somebody really had to teach us? Because that was something we really learned from ourselves, from at home, within our homes and our communities. That's not nothing somebody had to really like come in and teach us, how to be civilized, how to be domesticated to that extent, right? Or that was just a learned behavior we learned from outside of our own. To be a domestic person, like we were just wild savages, animals, beasts, and this kind of thing. No, we were, right? We were civilized people.
Shorty. Little wild, shorty.
No, that's the truth. We were not just like, even if we were
I said
hunters,
we was a little wild. You're a little wild.
Well, everybody's wild. Even as a hunter, even if we were a hunter, we still
little wild, running around naked.
Even if we were a hunter, we still had to clean and whatnot to prepare a food. So that's still bringing it into a domesticated or a civilized way. You still had a certain way to do a certain thing in order to
toilet
prepare
paper,
food.
no deodorant.
Well, you know what? Funk was not done by one, right? Funk wasn't done by one. So it was many a days.
No underwear.
But hey. I've seen, I don't know, I probably could pull it up. I've seen some filthiness where somebody said it was a condom, but we know it wasn't, because I know they're going, well, didn't nobody use this look like potato sack that they tied around them. And I ain't surprised, because I'm a woman, and I know ain't no woman that nobody put no potato sack on them and go in. So we not gonna ride with that. We gonna say that was the underwear.
1500 BCE.
1500 BC none. We know that they ain't did that.
Hey, Sakina, let me get in there real quick, right? When you talk about human domestication,
that shit funny.
Y'all are, this is why I'm glad we ended it and moved on to this, because I knew this where we was going. It gets wild. Yo. But no, human domestication can be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. Social evolution, biological development, things like that. But you got selection for pro-social traits. They argue, scientists argue human societies became more complex. Individuals who could cooperate, right? One of the C's, communicate, another one of the C's, effectively, and exhibit less aggression, you're more likely to succeed and reproduce. So you have self-domestication too. You know, sometimes we exhibit certain juvenile traits, but once you start talking about social structure, norms, technological advancements, dependence, right? So you got the development of agriculture, settlements, and things like that, urbanization. We become more dependent, right, on manufactured environments and social systems. But I think sometimes if you look at it, you look at self-domestication versus cultural evolution, right? If you wanted to really have the conversation, or you wanted to look at just the complexity of human evolution. This is what I mean by these conversations cross so many boundaries, so many quote unquote barriers, you know, because we're influenced by a whole bunch of factors: environment, migrations, genetic mixings, right? So it's kind of like you kind of make it too simple, not you, but the conversation of domestication in humans becomes too simple to just say attribute social and technological progress, right? So it's a fascinating thing. It's you view it through biological and social evolution. We keep coming back to that word in regards to domestication, evolution. But it's
Right,
I think you need to go ahead.
No, because then we will go back into another stage in there when we talk about our brain balance and our brain food,
Yeah,
and we're going
yeah,
into fight and flight, right? So
yeah.
we can't. We would the domestic would still put us in one of those chapters in one of those risk factors where we know we
Mm-hmm.
got to survive. So we would. You see what I'm saying? So even
Mm-hmm.
even in a domestic situation, so we want to call it, we would get into a stage where we would have to find this point where we're gonna make these decisions where we either gonna survive or we're gonna starve, right?
Yeah.
And so this changes the dynamics, right? Because we back in these stages. These stages are way before we get to domestication.
Mm. Mm. And I think,
So
you know, even if you go back to the first chapter, when we started talking about, you know, when they say our brains are not designed necessarily for thinking, right? It's survive, thrive, and reproduce. And whoever does that the
exactly,
best is still here. Whoever does that the best is still here. If we were all the same,
exactly.
another thing that she said in here was, and if this was in the second to last chapter, I believe, is that if we were all the same, we wouldn't exist. So that's why I look at a person. I'm not always I'm more forgiving in a way because I'm newer to the community. That I understand that you need quote unquote um, antagonist, protagonist. You need all of these
Variation.
things, right? Variation, right? You need all of these things in order for our entire group to move on, survive, thrive, and reproduce. That's one of the beauties of being human. That's why a lot of things have gone extinct and just not us yet. You know, if we were all the same, then when natural disasters happen, we'd all be gone. And that's the beauty of those
Yeah,
five C's, because it allows us, because we have those things that are unique to being a human, we're able to move on. We're able to have floods, earthquakes, wildfires, snowstorms, all these different natural disasters that have wiped out so many other things. But the fact that we're still here, now you go into technological advancements, you go into cultural evolution. So now, you know, I think it's a nuanced conversation. And I think that even in regards to domestication, like you say, it's such a weird word, and that kind of goes into communication when we talk about it, right?
it
Because when you
is.
think about
It is.
domestic, you go right to animals. But you know,
Right. Well,
but
then
in
we
an
still
extra,
say survival of the fittest, right, Brass?
exactly, yep,
Okay,
survival
so
of the
then that's
fittest.
still exactly. So we still falling under the same umbrella, even though, right? Because everything didn't survive, only the
Hmm.
strongest survived, right? We have things that don't exist now that did exist then, right?
Hmm.
So even though the word might not be preferable, but we still talking about the same thing in the end. We got things now that's going extinct,
Hmm.
right? So we
Hmm.
still saying almost the same thing, but the word is not it's distasteful, but we still kind of on the same thing, right or wrong.
Yeah, kind of on the same plane. I think one of the things she
Well,
covered that was poignant, and
Like,
then I'm gonna let you go, Marcus. Let me just say this:
yeah, I
the
wanted to add a
back.
quick point there. I couldn't get in. I didn't want to interrupt
Okay,
y'all.
I'm gonna just say this last thing, and y'all can take it. When
I
she
don't
was
believe
talking
you. I
about
don't believe you, Brad.
bacteria, it's
I
gonna
don't
be
believe
quick,
you.
bro.
I don't
It's
believe you.
when she was talking about bacteria, how we look at ourselves as greater than bacteria, but there's some bacteria that can survive in space and we can't. So I think
Yeah, but you eat
it's just that
bacteria too.
idea,
You eat
right? Exactly.
mushrooms.
Good back,
Mushroom is a
right?
bacteria,
Yep. Good
right or
bacteria,
wrong.
bad bacteria. All right. It's
Exactly.
a fungus from what I know.
But that's a bacteria, and you eat it, and you still survive. You call it what we
Well,
want to, but
some mushrooms you can eat and still survive. Not all of them.
right. But it's still a bacteria. It's still a mushroom, and we still can eat it.
Mushrooms
We're
is a
not saying
fungus.
it's a
Fungi.
fungus, but it still causes, and
I
it's
get your
still
point.
mold.
Yeah, I get your
Mold
point.
is
I
a
get your point.
bacteria. So what are we saying? It's here or there, but it's almost it's not as bad as others, but it is still the same. It still carries a mold and a fungus and bacteria. But not as harmful as others, but it's still in that category.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
I understand where you're coming from.
I'm not saying it as is trying to make it detrimental or anything. I'm just categorizing it to say a learned behavior, or are we taking it outside of saying more than what it was? Do you see what I'm saying?
No,
Is it
I do
something?
see what you're saying. I see what you're
Right.
saying.
That's all I'm saying.
What is you saying?
Go ahead, Marcus. Hold on. Let Marcus jump in there. Go ahead, Marcus.
What I'm saying is what we're saying. I'm
I
not
know
saying
where
that
you're
somebody
going.
else has to
I
do
know
it.
where
If
this
it's
is going,
something
bro.
we did
Just
for
let Marcus
ourselves
go.
versus somebody else actually having to teach us something.
Oh, hold
That's
on.
all
Let me
I was
say
really
this.
getting from.
Hold on. For Marcus go, I wanted to make a correction. It's
Okay,
actually
go
not
ahead.
survival of the fittest. It's actually survival of the fit genes. Because you can be the best. You can have the tribe that's the best fighters in the world, and they always putting themselves at risk, yo. And over time, they will have less babies than the tribe that's negotiable and know how to negotiate and be be a little more peaceful. You feel me? And whatever those genes that are expressing themselves to make you more aggressive, that could actually count against you. So it's really, when Charles Darwin said it, they mixed it all up. So survival of the fittest. He was just saying, survival of the most fit genes. Genes that are fit, will pass on to next generation. That's all. Go ahead, Marcus.
So there is appreciate that, because I was gonna go to a similar thing. God Killer, I was about to head that direction. So there is
So I
a
dove in real quick.
hypothesis out there that talks about self-domestication of humans, but it isn't similar to the same way that dogs and animals and stuff was domesticated. And it's a very unique thing. It basically says that through sexual selection, those with the gene variant for cooperation, for language, emotional intelligence, were able to reproduce more. And so in that process, we kind of, for lack of a better term, self-domesticated ourselves from our closest primate ancestors, which is called homogenization. Also, there is a study that came out, believe it or not, I think it came out last year, that talks about a specific change in the quantity of the genes associated with the parietal lobe, which is your sense of agency, that over the course of somewhere between 160 to 200,000, it was a heavy selection pressure for it. And the way they came to it is they took the chimp, our closest primate ancestor today, the chimpanzee relative, not ancestor, relative, the Neanderthal genome, and the modern human genome, and did a comparison for this specific area of the genome that has to do with the neurons in your parietal lobe. And in that, they found that modern humans had an abundance of these neurons and these mutations on these genes compared to chimpanzees, and Neanderthals came somewhere in between. And I will put that study in the Discord so we can read that. And then there's an NPR article that talks about it. But I want to make a clarification. Domestication and civilization aren't mutually inclusive words. They don't mean the same thing. So I don't want to, kind of like combine them two together. So domestication has a connotation of really it's more on the physical side of reality. It's an expression, change in gene expressions that have occurred over time, such as with the wolf and the dog. Dog became domesticated. You start to see sexual selection begin to change in that. Civilization is almost always just social reality. It's based on how we socialize with one another, and that kind of connotation. And the problem with that is that at times people only see civilization as they themselves are the only civilized ones, and everyone else isn't. And that's not necessarily a European thing. You can find evidence of that across the planet. Another thing, this was a question that came earlier, and that is, it's easy for us to look at us versus them and isolate that as a evolutionary process, and it is. And the same chemicals that cause pair bonding and tournament species is the exact same that will cause a mother to cling to her child and not another child, technically, in the most general sense of the term. And so a lot of things are evolutionary processes, but just because something is an evolutionary process, social reality, again, is porous and plays a role in how you view it. What does that mean? That means I like the Eagles, and I like Baltimore Ravens. That's part of social reality. He's going to cheer for the Ravens. I'm going to cheer for the Eagles. You can find that displayed in everything. I like this type of music. This person like this type of music. And our shifting of these us versus them is constantly changing based on our social environment. Where are we at? It's easy to always look at black and white. It's easy to look at these surface level adaptations. I think Maya Matir spoke on that. Make sure y'all check that show out as well. Beautiful interview that the Pseudo Killer did with an expert. So these are some of the conversations I like to have, but nevertheless, let's domestication, civilization different. There is a hypothesis out there that through sexual selection, we did somewhat domesticate ourselves, and to be more at least semi less. Let me say that violent, and that between 160 200,000 years ago, our sense of agency developed in stronger yields than in our closest ancestor, the Neanderthal, and our closest relative, Neanderthal, and our closest living relative, the chimpanzee.
Okay, let me ask one more question, then I'm done. So when we say societies that separate us, I think you said pair bonding or something to that effect. So the societies, when we say that, so when we have animals that travel or what, because animals have their own societies too, as far as like fishes and whatnot have schools, they have dogs.
What?
Travel. Fishes come together. They have when they go
fishes.
together. Fish.
Swimming with the fishes.
All together, they call fish. However you want to say it, I don't know.
Groups of fish are called schools.
They're in schools. They call them schools, and we know that dogs travel in packs and wolves in packs and stuff like that. These are societies and whatnot for these animals. So are we not saying?
Agreed.
Okay, so are we saying that this is different from what we are as far as saying societies and groups and things like this, because this is still their social or their way of socializing their social things. And so, again, because when we saying we have an animalistic thing within us, and this is how we
We
interact
are
within
animals. Humans are
society.
animals. Humans
Exactly.
are
So when
animals.
we see that they're doing this is how they do their thing in their society when they do their mating thing, and we do our mating thing. And so I'm just trying to draw a line. When you're saying a difference between a society of humans versus a society of animals, and then the domestic thing. I want to be able to draw a line, whether it's an invisible line or a clear line.
Draw a line between what the other animals and humans?
No, the difference, because if the societies between the it's a physical is domestic, and civil is a civilization is different based on societies or whatever. I want to be able to know, how do I differentiate it? That's what I'm saying.
Differentiate. Oh, I have no idea what you're talking about,
So
Brad's probably can help you with that.
Yeah, I was about to help him, but go ahead,
Because he
Marcus.
just made a difference. He said he just said that there's a big. He said there's a difference between domestic, because domestic was physical, and civil is for them to be civilized, they have to be social, or having societies.
Right.
But
So
animals do have societies.
correct. So it's about degrees, right? So you have social norms within certain animals. Not all animals are social, but you do have social norms inside of animals, right? And so when we talk about evolution, we're not necessarily saying that it's absolutely new, but that it's added on to, right? So it's added on to. So you look at chimpanzees, right? When they go and they groom one another, they get dopamine release, right? When humans hold each other's hand, we get dopamine release. But we don't only get that dopamine release from human contact, right? So we can get it from other things that are uniquely human, such as reading books, right? Or like working out, right? So these is what we mean. This is what Robert Sapolsky says it, that we just it's the same mechanisms, we just use it uniquely, right? So we are social animals. When I talk about parabonding, that's a neurological function, right? They use voles to find out, right? The voles that were parabond had one type of neuron receptor. The ones who were not had a different type. Humans fall somewhere in between with a nice gradient. So we parabond. We create these type of relationships. But that mechanism is not new. So we evolved in social settings. Most primates have some type of social setting. They exchange differently. Like sometimes it could be male, mostly male, and the male. It's like in some cases the male goes and finds another one. Sometimes it's the female. It's a whole mixture depending on which group you in. Bonobos are wild. They're hypersexual, But these are all things that primates do, right? And so they have social norms for them. And there are certain trends that you find. So the more social the animal happens to be, including humans, right? The larger the prefrontal cortex section of their brain tend to be. And so I think I showed you an image earlier of the brain. So that prefrontal cortex section, there's some correlation to that. And humans have compression. We talked about compression in the prefrontal cortex at a greater degree than any other animal. So
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Juju.
I want you to finish, and I'm just going to add on real quick.
And so that's how evolution, from what they currently understand, works. So yes, their animals are social, and yes, humans are social, but we can use that concept or that thing in very unique ways. So in certain primates, you have certain sexual selection. So certain primates can sexually reproduce. They call it like the I don't want to say alpha male because that's pseudo, but they have primacy in their sexual selection in that way. Peacocks with the bright feathers, right? Well, in human societies, because we're so variable, right? You could be a great athlete and draw, or you could be a millionaire. You could be a great artist. You could just be a nice person, and all these things depending on
Talk
how
that talk.
society
You just talk
values,
that talk.
how society values that makes that part of your sexual selection. So it's a very complicated and beautiful thing. And I think we could do a good show on that maybe a little later. But yeah, that's just where we at. Go ahead, Juju.
Yeah, I wanted to say and I'll repeat what Logic said in the chat earlier. So the difference is that we are complex social beings. We have complex, social realities. So that's the standout. And this the ending of this source material speaks on that. So the whole time in this book, and I think most of the pseudo killers will agree, because we've had these discussions on the superiority of humans. Like, how superior are we from other humans? And when you really investigate and look at it, beyond the surface level, we're not, that superior, if at all. But there are some differences, and the things we spoke about today, that's the difference. The ability to have abstraction. Animals really can't do that, but humans can. That's one of the fundamental difference. That's what makes it complex. So
Can't do what?
Your birthday is over.
To be on fire, to be on top of the food chain.
I tried to tell him, Juju. Chef said the same thing. I'm gonna let Unc live because it's his birthday. Unc's birthday is over. We back to regularly scheduled program.
I'll give you an example. The example to give agency to objects outside of the physical form. When we talked about money, animals don't do that. Or
what?
We don't have any evidence that they do that.
Did they do what? Put value on money? Have money?
No. Your birthday is over.
Yep, you falling into it, Juju. Just let him rock. Hey, Chef, I watched that Nzinga show where y'all was killing Savior for trying to play an 11-minute video and completely destroying Unc's point. That was the funniest part of that entire video.
No Nzinga talk. We not doing that.
My God. But no, I'm just saying I learned from previous material.
11-minute video that killed my point.
11 hours. I didn't give it the credit. It's 11 hours and 42 minutes of Chef at bits and parts slowly killing the conversation.
You think so?
He was like, you and him are hilarious. Y'all past videos is way better than anything y'all did do, bro.
You actually think Chef beat the curators, yo?
I didn't say beat, and I ain't about to participate. That's where I'm at, Juju.
You actually think he went? That's what he do. He run past the curators. He on the other side with the pseudos. They all run past the curators and swear they know better than the experts. Chef just sound more organized. Do the same shit. Yeah, we go Washington D.C. and see Nzinga in the slave section. Do they tag her a slave? A slaver, or do they tag her a what do they tag that woman?
As a fighter against colonialism,
and slavery.
No.
Oh yeah.
If she participated in slavery, how could she? Well, then the museum wrong.
Okay, I'll take that.
Are museum? Hold on, let me ask y'all a question. Are museums curated and ran by human beings? That's a fair question.
I mean, that's obvious. Yeah.
Obviously that's a yes. Now, are humans infallible?
Yeah. No, we can make mistakes.
Not. You dig what I'm saying? They can make mistakes. They can get things wrong.
The social reality is that she was a good person. That's the social reality.
I love y'all. And this is where Brass says open the door to the car.
Hey, Brass. I just want to say something to you, Brass.
Good, bro. I ain't about to do it. Go ahead. I learned from my mistakes, G. Ain't no way y'all gonna take me down this road. It ain't gonna happen, bro.
Brass, I ain't saying she wasn't selling weed, Brass. I'm just saying she wasn't selling dope and coke. That's all. That's all I'm saying, dog.
Wait, but you know what's funny about that though? This is why. Listen, Chef. I ain't never met Chef, but I done watched 400 hours of Chef on YouTube, so I feel like I know him. And he literally said in that same video, "You will take the most profound historical moment and turn it into a drug deal. You will literally turn it into a drug transaction." So listen, Chef has helped me understand you more than you will move the goalposts. You will have a joker talking, change the whole point, come back around, and then attack him when he make a mistake. So trust and believe. I did not just meet both of y'all, and I'm not gonna be the third musketeer in y'all legion. I promise you that. But go ahead, proceed.
No, I'm done.
on
I'm
mute.
done. I made my
I'm on
drug
mute.
analogy for the night.
Thank
show.
you,
I'm
Chef. You have taught me. I read source material in the archives, and I take them very seriously. Oh, and you literally just did it. Oh, you just pulled down to a drug deal.
You don't get it. You don't get it. Though.
I know. I completely get it. It's just you always turn historical figures and events into Baltimore, Maryland drug deals. It never fails.
I feel like we can all understand that. We ain't saying this shit ain't get our hands dirty. That ain't what was said.
Oh man. And your dog, and you have a beautiful dog, Chef. That's that beautiful dog, bro.
Is it domesticated?
Yeah, dogs are domesticated and he's trained. So two things didn't happen there. And we done domesticated the dog about 20,000 years. And it took my dog 2 weeks to be house trained. So,
but shit, my damn dog trained his own self. I'm still marveling with that shit.
For the audience, a Doug is a dog. They are speaking Baltimorean, ladies and gentlemen.
That's for the audience. Word. You messed up the word. You was a Doug.
Doug? Yeah,
no, it's a dog. It's a dog. Y'all just say
ain't never been to Baltimore, ain't never met a Baltimorean or none of that. But I had a dog too. I love me some Dougs.
Hey Juju, I DJ'd a Baltimore versus Jersey club party, right? And I did a very good job, right? We were battling, and some joker called me a dummy as a term of endearment. And I swear, it took I had to hold everybody back in my circle, and they had to explain to me that a dummy is actually a term of endearment in Baltimore. Bro. I kid you not, bro. I used to DJ. That's how I understand Baltimore so much, because our club music is similar. And the dude called me a dummy.
I say you,
and then
said
you're amazing. Bought me a drink too.
Yeah, I mean, I used to say you stupid, you retarded, and be laughing. But
no, they'll call you a dummy, Juju.
Yeah, but I mean, I kind of get it. I would say that, and you know, I had to learn that some people didn't understand. Like, you stupid, you funny. Like, that's crazy. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? Like,
so even Marcus with that Joan.
So that's actually
John. Yeah,
but that's
John.
He
must be from DC.
Yeah, the DC be saying that.
No, he's from Philly. That's Philly.
Yeah, that's Philly. John is Philly. But those are examples of social reality. Those are
the communication.
Of different minds creating different cultures. Right there.
Hell with that. Let's break out to the Egyptian thing, Chef.
No.
Well, hey, I love y'all. I appreciate the
we got them hanging by their toenails up in the.
Hold up,